No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. Happy Friday. This is Outspoken Live episode number 193. And breaking right now, I have exclusive reporting today on the Reform UK civil war that has erupted over Nigel Farage and Zia Yusuf's stringent new vetting system, causing mass resignations even before the witch hunt against Rupert Lowe. So in my digest next, I will reveal how a businesswoman was rejected from standing for reform because of a shoplifting conviction when she was just 16 years old. I'll also tell you how the rules are bad news for aspiring London mayoral candidate, former SAS hero and TV star Ant Middleton, plus how the Rupert Lowe drama has put off Suella Braverman from defecting to reform from the Tories. So we'll make a lot of news in just a few minutes, then get the best analysis in the business from Connor Tomlinson, contributor to Courage Media and co-host of the New Culture Forum's Deprogrammed podcast. Also coming up on the show today, Rupert Lowe launches his own rape gang inquiry after Reform UK dropped theirs. We'll bring you all those details. The MSM is shamed over its soft touch treatment of Rachel from accounts, which includes softball questions from woke ITV like this.
You're taking a bit of flack for accepting Sabrina Carpenter tickets, but what's your favourite Sabrina Carpenter song?
Well, I've got to tell you, Sabrina Carpenter, I mean, she's great.
I just want to get that guy straight to the hairdressers. And Lady Colin Campbell reveals worrying news about King Charles as the monarch makes an emergency hospital dash because of his ongoing cancer treatment.
The King is not in any position health-wise to add to any stress and burdens that he already has. I mean, his cancer is not curable.
Then, in the uncancelled after show on Substack, Prince William's shocking message to Meghan Markle after teaming up with Jeremy Clarkson and all the rest of the royal news with Angela Levin. You can sign up to watch right now, www.outspoken.live. And of course, because it is Friday, and you know how much I love this, we put all of our union jackasses from across the week to a major vote. Last time I checked, over 25,000 of you have already voted, which is just incredible. It's on the post section of the YouTube channel. And we find out who is the worst Briton in the world this week. So the nominees from your Union Jackass choices. Monday, Stephanie Mander, that head teacher who has banned Easter. Tuesday, Ed Miliband, need I say more. Wednesday, Rachel from Accounts, need I say more. Thursday, Shabnam Mahmood, need I say more. So get voting and I will announce the worst Briton in the world this week and your feedback at the end of the show. But now, let's go. Over 10,000 patriots will gather in Birmingham tonight for what Reform UK promises is the biggest political rally in 15 years. And before the party reported its top-performing MP Rupert Lowe to the police, the momentum was undoubtedly with Nigel Farage's insurgent force. But what hasn't been reported until now is the chilling effect of the party's hyper-vigilant vetting policy, which I have spent weeks looking into. Hundreds of loyal party members and activists, including many in local branch leadership positions, have not passed the stringent, I believe, over-the-top new standards, which include, by the way, a complete rejection if you have expressed any support at any time online for Tommy Robinson. Senior party officials tell me there are growing fears the paranoia over vetting is causing top talent to walk out the door. Listen to this. I have learned a top female businesswoman recently failed vetting and was rejected as a candidate because as a 16-year-old, she was convicted of shoplifting. Now, shoplifting is a terrible scourge on society, although we know it's legalized these days. But decades on, this businesswoman has turned her life around. She has become a role model citizen. Surely the sort of rags to riches story that would make her an inspiring Reform UK candidate. But no. This system also means that one of 4 Reform MPs, James McMurdoch, whose teenage assault conviction has been spoken about far too much in the MSM, and I will not go into it today, but it means he would also not pass vetting. My reporting has also revealed that Ant Middleton, the SAS hero and TV star who has been very publicly positioning himself to run against Sadiq Khan on a Reform UK ticket for the next London mayoral election, will also not pass vetting. Meanwhile, the brutal cancellation of Rupert Lowe has had a significant impact on recruitment, not only of members, which has stalled, but high-profile Tory defections too. A source close to the former Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, has told me that she was mortified watching the treatment of Rupert Lowe and has now openly asked allies why on earth she would take the risk of the same thing happening to her. And while the poll ratings have remained relatively steady, although there is a clear halt of momentum, some think the soul of Reform UK is being ripped out. Take this from Carl Benjamin of Lotus Eaters, who wrote, "Reform members keep messaging me to inform me that the internal state of the party is a shambles." He pointed to an example of an entire board resigning in protest. But I want to be fair, and even though it doesn't please either side, I have been presenting both sides of this argument. But what I will not do, and let me just be very clear about this, I will not do what GB News has done and simply fold from pressure from Reform UK and Nigel Farage and say, we're not going to cover this at all. We're not going to interview Rupert Lowe. We're just going to pretend he doesn't exist. I will not do that. What I will do is present both sides of the arguments because I am an independent journalist. So we've got this from Reform activist Jack Eccles, who says, Nigel Farage says in Doncaster, no one has heard of Rupert Lowe. There is a strong case to be made that outside of Twitter, Rupert Lowe is completely irrelevant. His supporters seem to be fading away day by day. Contrast that with YouTuber and Tommy Robinson supporter Paul Thorpe, who wrote, it's very clear there is a big divide between Reform voters and supporters. There are those who want real reform, and there are those hoping for reform. Either way, we are on the same side. We just see the route to victory differently. Everyone is entitled to their beliefs and opinions. Mine is that Nigel Farage will not deliver the true reform we want or need. Now, no, Nigel's cosy gin and tonic lunch yesterday with Westminster journalists, while he continues to ignore independent journalists, hasn't exactly helped, as he said he admires Keir Starmer and that the Prime Minister is a perfectly decent human being. Now, I have to admit I struggle to see how you can ignore someone waging class warfare on the country, gaslighting us about the real reasons behind the destruction of the economy, throwing open the borders, tanking the economy, waging two-tier justice and consistently lying to us about important national issues like the Southport massacre. I struggle to see how you can ignore that. I also struggle to see how you can ignore locking up grandmothers for over 2 years for Facebook posts. There is nothing perfectly decent about that to me. Indeed, it's the definition of evil. Describing the Tories as boring old bastards, though, well, that's a lot better, isn't it? That's the Nigel we know and love. But as Farage gathers in Birmingham tonight, it really is worth remembering the dire state of our country. Take gunshots outside a local Birmingham school this week.
We're fighting, shooting. Oh, fighting. There's a yarn. There's a yarn. Oh my gosh.
Bro, he needs to
Fighting.
go home.
They're gone. Oh my god.
This is the new normal in broken Britain. But we cannot sit by and just accept it. Now, Connor Tomlinson is here. Connor, great to have you here. Of course, contributor at Courage Media and co-host of the Deprogrammed podcast for the New Culture Forum. So, Connor, I guess most of the attention publicly and in the independent media has been focused on this growing civil war sparked by reporting Rupert Lowe to the police. But actually, behind the scenes in the party, what my reporting shows is that there is serious unease about this new vetting policy, which seems to just rule out so many patriots, often from running as a candidate, but sometimes, Connor, from even being able to be a member of the party.
Yes, hello, Dan. Pleasure as always. And it feels like I only ever get to talk to you under dark and gloomy circumstances, but it's
sadly
necessary.
not much fun, is there?
I had a friend who put themselves forward, actually, to be a local council candidate, and he was selected, but his application was flagged because the vetting process is so rigorous that he had a couple of swear words in a few fake Facebook posts, and it flagged that. And if it weren't for him raising this with someone at Reform HQ, he might have also fallen afoul of the vetting process. So I think it's especially and unduly stringent, and I think it speaks to a anxiety that the party has born out of the fact that they were rubbished in the media unfairly in the lead up to the general election for a few candidates that the likes of Hope Not Hate objected to. Now, Hope Not Hate are an open borders communist organization who have hired former Nazis, now members of the Communist Party, who have praised Stalin's murderous Red Army. So taking their view on what is and isn't extreme is unwise. However, the party did, and it did deselect some candidates because of this. And so now I think that the party is kicking into overdrive, worried about potential smears from the mainstream media and whether or not this could impact polling and their chances at the next election, and is being overzealous in preventing candidates from getting through the net. And this will lead it to softening over time. And this will be justified as, well, we need to do this in order to win more of the vote share. The perfect example of this is the new candidate for Runcorn, which is Sarah Pochin. As you've already discussed on your show, Dan, when she was mayor in 2021, she attended a Pride event for the drag queens and also attended a refugees welcome event for Afghans and Syrians. And Gawain Towler, who I like very much, we've both met him. He's a hilarious chap. But Gawain Towler wrote in The Critic this week saying that anyone who objects to this is a right-wing Corbynista. And his defenses were as follows. First of all, she was only there in a ceremonial capacity, so she didn't really believe in it anyway. And then second of all, well, wouldn't your heart melt too if you heard the stories of all of these Syrians and Afghans who fled the Taliban or Assad's regime and needed to seek refuge in Britain, never mind the fact that they are overrepresented in sex crime, that they are the demographics least likely to work and most likely to claim benefits when they're here, and lots of them are not temporary stays because they can claim indefinite leave to remain and be tax dependents forever in Britain after 5 years. And then the final justification was, well, we need to professionalize and soften our image so that we can carry that Ming vase across the finish line. So the justifications are, if you're keeping score, it's not happening. Well, it's only happening a little bit. Well, it is happening and it's a good thing. And so with the vetting, with the softening of candidates, with the admission of Lib Dem and Tory defectors and even Bangladeshi nationalists as councillors, I would suggest that the Ming vase strategy will only work for reform so long as the people carrying the vase don't want to drop it when you've crossed the finish line. And that's my main fear, that reform will win, but then by the time they have won, they are not packed out with true believers that want to execute on the policies that they at least ostensibly stand for in the public mind.
What do you make of the fact that this vetting policy, Connor, according to my reporting anyway, means that Ant Middleton won't be able to stand against Sadiq Khan for the London mayoralty? He's obviously got a really colourful history, Ant, but he's been openly lobbying for that role. And he was even out in DC, as you were, but he was there hanging out with Nick Candy and Farage at the inauguration. So it's like, what, you can have this guy at your social parties, but he's not able to stand?
I think he will be able to stand because the definition of sovereignty, Dan, is he who can decide the exception. And I think the ability to unilaterally decide exceptions is the reason that Farage has not democratized the party as quite a lot of local branch chairmen and the likes of Ben Habib would like him to. Now, I have my criticisms of the way that reform is being run. As I have said time and time before, I think if you have 53% of Green Party voters wanting to conduct mass deportations of illegal sex criminals, I think you only stand to gain by strengthening your migration rhetoric. But that aside, I'm actually not one of these people that's calling for the party to be democratized on principle. I think you can actually run a party pretty effectively as a kind of monarch over a mini fiefdom. The problem is, at the moment, is a lot of people want to democratize the party, not because they want to get rid of Nigel Farage necessarily, but because they feel the people around Farage or his co-director, Zia Yusuf, are not running the party competently, and so they want more of a say in its affairs. All of that to one side, I think the party structure, Farage being the director, being the king of reform, the undisputed leader, means that even if it's hypocritical, even if Ant Middleton on paper violates the vetting procedure, Farage will just wave that away and say, this is a little indiscretion and we're going to run him as a candidate to unseat the unpopular Mayor Khan anyway. So I agree with you. It's a violation of their stated principles as per the vetting procedure, but I wouldn't be shocked if they let Ant Middleton do it.
Yeah, well, that's what I assumed, Connor. But as I say, in my reporting over the past few weeks, what's interesting is that I'm being told, no, they won't allow him to run, which I think is a mistake. But there you go. They seem to be very, very determined to stick to these tough policies. Now, we see Suella Braverman there with her husband, who has, of course, defected to Reform UK. But what do you think about the fact that high-profile potential defectors, not just from the Tory party, by the way, Connor, but business people have seen what happened to Rupert Lowe and said, hang on a moment, if they're going to do that to him, why on earth would I take the risk of them doing that to me? In Suella's case, maybe it's better to hang around in the Conservative Party, see if Robert Jenrick becomes leader. And that's, I think, a real folly for Reform UK. And it's why, actually, the moment I saw they'd reported Rupert Lowe to the police, I was like, no, what are you doing?
Yeah, I think we've shared a perspective on this, Dan, all along, which is not that we are reform sycophants who want the party to succeed no matter what, and not that we are necessarily solely loyal to Rupert Lowe, even though we like some of the things that he's done in Parliament and we believe he's a principled man. It's that our criticisms of reform have been levelled at reform because we have said their actions in the last few weeks will prevent them from being as effective in government, even if they maintain momentum in the polls and they win. Because the type of talent you're going to attract now are people who are naked careerists, sycophants, and who are willing to subordinate their principle and even their own instinct for self-preservation to sticking in there, staying quiet, saying whatever the party wants to hear so that they can get a safe seat and become an MP or maybe even succeed Farage in the future. And that means you're not going to get the high quality, high caliber candidates and individuals to execute on the mandate that reform might be afforded in 2029. This is what Trump learned, right? Trump, for all of his egomania as accused by his critics and detractors in mainstream media, it's actually pretty magnanimous. I mean, J.D. Vance called him a fascist in 2015. Tulsi Gabbard, Vivek Ramaswamy, and RFK Jr. all ran against him in the presidential primaries, and yet he allowed them into his all-star coalition. He forgave their transgressions, he shook their hand on stage, and has now given them high prominent appointments or the ability to run for Ohio governor. In Vivek's case, and it's because he's recognized that the country requires high-profile talent, even if he doesn't get along with them perfectly. And what reform has now done is shown, unfortunately, that if someone in the party who is high up does not get along with you personally, it doesn't matter how talented you are for the chop. And the most fatal mistake here was made not by Zia Yusuf in reporting Rupert Lowe to the police, which I think is reprehensible, and I wouldn't be shocked if Rupert Lowe is cleared very soon, because if it took you 4 months to report said threats, they were neither imminent nor credible, let's put it that way. I think the most fatal mistake was made by Nigel Farage, who seems to have taken Zia Yusuf at his word as co-director, and didn't know that he was going to be reported to the police ahead of time, but because he is his co-director, has come out and said, I am sure that Reform has acted properly and that all the procedures were followed, and has written in the Telegraph defending the decision, even though it looks like very much the wrong one. Because now Farage has not only made it impossible to repair broken bridges with Rupert Lowe, but he's also made it so that if someone goes rogue and reports someone else to the police or tries to rubbish their career within Reform, the likelihood that Farage is going to side with them over their spurious accuser is low, and so you're only going to attract the most servile, opportunistic type of talent.
Wow. He is going for it. Rupert Lowe has just announced that he will hold an inquiry into the Pakistani Muslim rape gang scandal after Reform UK and Nigel Farage made that promise, but then backed away from it when Labour launched a number of regional inquiries. So there it is. The rape gang inquiry will happen. This is not glamorous, of course, and it's going to be very, very difficult and upsetting to cover. But my God, it is important. And this is why I thank God that we have men like Rupert Lowe who are prepared to put their money where their mouth is. Already he has put £5,000 of his own money, matching a donation from Ben Habib earlier today. Here's how it's going to work in Rupert Lowe's words. He says, today I am launching a national inquiry into the rape gang scandal. It will focus on 3 questions. What happened? How did it happen? And why was it allowed to happen? A qualified panel will be appointed to oversee the inquiry with a legal advisory team to support the panel throughout the inquiry. There will be 3 stages: evidence collection, public hearings, report, publication. There will be a secure submission process for evidence, and the hearings will be live streamed. In non-attendance, questions will still be put on the record and evidence examined. The findings will be compiled and a report will be published. Any surplus funds raised will be donated to charities supporting victims, and every penny spent will be transparently published. Extensive discussions have taken place over the last couple of weeks in regards to the participants of the panel and, of course, the inquiry itself. More details will be announced soon with the option to put yourself forward. Witness protection and safeguarding will be prioritised. Finally, I would like to apologise. Promises were made by my former party about holding an inquiry, and those promises were not kept. I tried to push behind the scenes, but evidently I did not go far enough, and for that I am sorry. I do not believe that making such bold claims which gave so many so much hope and then failing to deliver is an honest way of conducting politics, particularly on an issue of this magnitude. Positive press about a potential inquiry was accepted and used for political gain by Reform and Farage, but no real action was taken. That does not sit right with me at all. When I make a promise, I keep it. I stated on March the 12th I would do this, and I am doing it. We are now ready for step 1, and this is just the start of the process. The mass rape of working-class white girls by mainly Pakistani men is a rotting stain on our country's history. This inquiry will not be able to fully deliver justice, but it can shine a light on the horror and open people's eyes to the vast scale of the vile abuse and exploitation. We shouldn't have to do this. It should be the government, but as we know, that is not happening, so that responsibility now lies with us. Any support you give is appreciated. There will be more updates very soon. So, Connor Tomlinson, Rupert Lowe is putting his money where his mouth is. The rape gang inquiry is happening. Sadly, it just won't be run by Reform UK.
Yeah, and I think we should all, if we are financially able, donate to this. There's already about 2,000 people putting in small to medium-sized donations to this effort, which I suppose shows that it's not just the online right that support Rupert Lowe, but people of conscience willing to put, again, money where their mouth is, to support this vital inquiry into truth and justice. And it is unfortunate that it takes Rupert Lowe alone at the moment, but anyone at all to bring a private inquiry towards this, because the Labour Party have decided time and time again to vote down a national inquiry, most likely because it indicts lots of their local councillors and politicians and police and crime commissioners and the like for not investigating this worst example of child abuse in British history for decades, and B, because it indicts their client groups, because they constantly pander to particularly the Pakistani community, with Naz Shah campaigning in Urdu and the like, but also the Muslim voting bloc, and they're petrified of losing them to an openly sectarian Muslim party in future elections. They've already got the likes of Wes Streeting and Jess Phillips' seats under threat within a whisker of a couple of hundred votes to be lost to pro-Gaza candidates the last election. They had other shadow cabinet ministers lose their places. So this is the reason that Labour have blocked this. However, I think everyone should be donating to this if they can. I think you should be providing evidence to this if you can. I plan to do both and have already been happy to say I've offered my services in terms of research, the reporting that I've done on this to try and contribute to this inquiry. And the need for the inquiry, even though it's going to be private and won't have statutory powers to compel people to give evidence, is twofold. The first of all is to sort of build public pressure and awareness about this. It shows the fact that this entire conversation was ignited by a discussion with Sam Bidwell, Max Tempers, and then Elon Musk, that actually the internet really can be real life, because without this discussion, it wouldn't have reached headlines again and Parliament. And two, to leverage pressure against the government of the day to try and bring forward a national inquiry with statutory powers and the ability to prosecute the people that not only participated in the rape gangs, but covered it up for decades. And whether or not this private independent inquiry leads to private prosecutions or just more clips to generate awareness of who and what did what, it's valuable. And I've got some names here of some of the people that actually this inquiry might be interested in calling, whether or not they show up to ask questions. So Sean Davies, he's the Telford MP for Labour at the moment. He was actually the leader of Telford Town Council in 2016 when it said that we do not feel at this time that a further inquiry is necessary into the rape gangs in the town. Sean Wright, the Rotherham councillor responsible for children's services from 2005 to 2010, went on to become South Yorkshire's Police and Crime Commissioner. Helen Brayley, who claimed that the current obsession with Asian sex gangs focuses too narrowly on one dimension to this crime, is now the Deputy Director of Unaccompanied Asylum-Seeking Children in the Home Office. Tom Harding was the 2018 West Mercia Superintendent, who said that the claims of Telford's rape gangs were sensationalised. He's now the Director of Operational Standards at the College of Policing. Oh, and the former leader of Oldham Council, you know, the place where the inquiry, Jess Phillips, closed down earlier this year. That's Jim McMahon. He's now Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner's assistant. So all of these people have failed upwards. I think all of these people should be asked to appear and answer questions, and their refusal to do so is as good as an indictment. One final point, if I may. It's a shame that the Reform Civil War has overshadowed this, and it's a shame as well that, of course, Rupert has pointed out in his statement that Reform have promised this and have yet to have delivered. It's possible they were going to do this after the local elections, perhaps their mentality. I don't know either way on that, but it has been a number of months since they promised to do so when the government didn't bring forward a national inquiry. The best thing to do now for both the Conservatives and Reform would be to get behind this. Nigel Farage, in a couple of hours, at 6:30 at time recording, is going to go on stage at Birmingham for Reform's one of its regional conferences. The best thing Farage can do, both for the Reform Civil War and for this inquiry, is to say, despite our differences with Mr. Lowe and Mr. Habib, we will be supporting this inquiry, we will pledge some funds. Farage could personally pledge some funds to this because he's got enough disposable income, and I truly believe he does care about this because he has spoken about it since at least 2014 in the UKIP days. Or, and, preferably and, Kemi Badenoch, Chris Philp, Robert Jenrick, numbers of the shadow cabinet and Her Majesty's opposition could tweet right now, they could just quote tweet Rupert Lowe and say, whether or not they're allowed to donate to this, I don't know, parliamentary standards, of course, but they could say, we will be cooperating with this private inquiry. If the government is not going to do it, then regardless of party affiliation, we should all be involved. And that would, it's cynical to say, be a political win for them, but it would at least be the right thing to help build pressure towards a national inquiry, which is what all of these girls deserve.
What's really interesting is that, again, there is quite a lot of fury within I guess, communities that previously supported Reform UK over this decision. So I'm told, and obviously I haven't seen this yet, but I'm told that at the Birmingham event tonight, there are going to be a group that is actually protesting. And they say, this group apparently say, don't use our abuse as a political weapon. And for example, Sammy Woodhouse, who is a rape gang survivor and was open about the fact that she did vote for Reform UK at the last election, has been scathing of Farage, saying, please explain to us what it is you've done to fight for us for over a decade, Nigel. I offered to work with your party for free and no one was interested. The only person in the party that ever reached out to myself is Rupert Lowe. And I know Samantha Smith, who's another rape gang survivor, has had very similar things to say, Connor.
Yeah, all of that's disappointing. And I think the only way that amends can be made now, both on the Reform Civil War and on this issue, is if Farage were to turn around and say, look, regardless of personality disputes and past differences, we'll put that aside for the good of the girls. And I think that magnanimity would be becoming of the incumbent king of the right. On the topic of protests, I mean, Farage was heckled by one of those really performative theatre kid I'm Spartacus movements again when he was in Doncaster a few days ago, and I thought he handled that very well. I don't know, this is very speculative. I do wonder tonight if there are going to be members of the audience who bought tickets to this event long before Rupert Lowe was reported to the police and ousted from the party, who are still going to be going but are going to make a fuss. I mean, beforehand, there was a regional rally around the time where Lee Anderson and Nigel Farage's comments on Tommy Robinson caused some consternation among the base, and Lee Anderson was heckled about by one of the attendees chanting to the likes of Free Tommy. I don't remember exactly what he said, but he chanted something about Tommy Robinson. And so I wouldn't be surprised if there was some disruption related to support for Rupert Lowe from Reformed members and own base, because as much as you want to dismiss these concerns as the marginal pet issues of the very online right, it's not. It's something that your leafleters, your core supporters, your canvassers, your candidates, your critical friends in the media actually care about. And so I think that move, it's unlikely, but that move for Farage to say, we'll get behind this inquiry despite personal differences, would do a lot to smooth over the bad blood that has been engendered over this whole debacle.
This online right term is making me so mad, Connor. I mean, I'm friends with Julia Hartley-Brewer, great woman in so many ways, but she kept talking about the online right with Zia Yusuf today, as if to just dismiss our concerns. And the thing is, right, to describe my Outspoken audience as being members of the online right is absolutely offensive. They are patriots. They are hardworking Brits. They are people who came with me through GB News. This online right thing is so dismissive and utterly, utterly ridiculous. But I did want to point out a video that you actually thought showed Nigel Farage doing the right thing this week. And you mentioned those protesters, Connor, and it was actually because they were left-wing protesters, of course, and it was in response to that moment. Watch this.
The National Education Union are going to tell people at school, don't vote for reform, it's dangerous. They're a mad, bad, far-right, racist party. This is left-wing indoctrination of young people coming from, frankly, people who hate this country and everything it's all about. TikTokers, if you're at school and being told this nonsense by your teachers, and by the way, I meet you in the street every week and you tell me that, object. Don't be difficult, don't be awkward, but object. And make sure you back reform every inch of the way, because we're the only people that will stand up for you and stand up for this country. To hell with left-wing teachers.
And Connor, you liked this. You posted on X saying this is very effective messaging, which shows that reform has real potential to reach young men like me who were sick of being patronised by progressive teachers. To make the most of that potential, Reform should clarify and strengthen its policies, especially on immigration, resolve this bitter dispute with Rupert Lowe. At the moment, Reform codes as the only anti-woke party, which is tough on migration. Mistakes have been made. It is not an attack on the party to say that Reform now needs to live up to the space it occupies in the public consciousness to have credibility. There is still time to do that. And I do think the best moment for Farage this week, Connor, was on stage in Doncaster when he took those lefty losers to task. He called them losers. And I still just thought, there is no other politician in the UK that would have dealt with them in that way. And we do have to say, Nigel still has significant strength.
Oh, absolutely. The best thing that he has is his direct messaging on social media and his ability to work a crowd and dismiss lefty critics in the same way that President Trump could at a rally, telling these sort of unattractive wastrels to go home to mummy. The base love it. So my well-intended constructive criticism, which who knows, may be taken as an insult, but it certainly isn't meant that way, was that brilliant, playing to your strengths, guys. You've got the world to gain. If, again, a majority of Green Party activists want to see foreign sex criminals deported, then don't be to the left of them, because pretty much all the votes that you could snap up are to your right. So clarify and live up to the strong immigration policies that not only your core supporters expect of you, but in the general public consciousness, you stand for. The reason Reform has risen in the polls is because people are so sick of the two parties that they kind of fill in the gaps of what they actually want without necessarily knowing the precise details of Reform's policy. Like if you asked your average man on the Clapham omnibus, what is Reform's migration policy? He's going to be like, well, they'll deport all the boat people and they'll bring the numbers down. He doesn't know that net zero migration means, 500,000 people coming in every year. He doesn't know that they're not going to deport all illegal migrants. They're just going to deport people in prison. Because public are well on board for those more stringent policies, and they just sort of think Reform are going to do it anyway. So live up to it. Public appetite is already there, frankly. And on this online right thing, this is the perfect example of that. What is Nigel doing? He is crafting a curated but very clever TikTok brand messaging to reach young men. Okay, so you're already admitting that the online space is a recruitment pool for an untapped well of discontented British lads that you want to get on side. So there's clearly a permeable barrier between the real world and electoral politics and the online space. There's a permeable barrier, as previously mentioned, because the entire reason we're talking about the rape gangs again is because anonymous Twitter accounts and the likes of Max Tempers, Sam Bidwell, myself, Charlie Peters, and Elon Musk were interacting over the course of a month, and then, hey presto, it becomes a big debate in Parliament. So by curating your TikTok messages, you're admitting that there's cross-pollination between the online and the real world. So lean into it. Don't dismiss the very online right. And I try not to take these things personally, Dan, but the phrase very online right was first coined late last year in the pages of Spiked by the likes of Inaya Falarin-Iman, who works for Civic Future with Munira Mirza, who is Boris Johnson's lead advisor, whose husband is the shady fixer who controls Conservative Party candidate selection, and is now working in Downing Street for Keir Starmer. And she disparaged myself, my co-host Harrison Pitt, Stephen Edgington over at GB News, as these white identitarian, very fringe, far-right figures, and she used the phrase very online right. And I think I'm being targeted in this because at Reform Conference, I was invited to take part in a panel, and in a now infamous clip, I was asked what was the one thing that Reform could do to win over voters at the next election. And I rather prophetically said mass deportations before Rupert Lowe made it popular. So I think what they're doing is Reform's enemies, who would rather see it sink than swim, are identifying some of its champions on the cutting edge of politics who have a sizable audience, who are actually showing the way to where the broader electorate lies and trying to gatekeep them out of conversations with Reform. And unfortunately, some people in Reform are advising Nigel Farage to marginalise them because they think the votes are all to be found in this mythical pro-immigration centre. I think if they reverse course, if they were stronger on immigration and they encompassed its critical friends with large audiences, like yourself, Dan, they'd actually have the world to win without needing to betray any principles.
Yeah, indeed. It's like there's this sort of space that they're comfortable to operate in. And Katie Hopkins described it quite well as the GB News framework. It's almost like acceptable if you're a GB News regular and support Reform UK. That means you don't talk about Tommy Robinson. You don't talk about remigration. You have to now talk down mass deportation, even though it's an incredibly popular policy amongst Reform UK voters, not to mention the wider population. And if you stick within that space, everything's okay. And you're not considered to be part of the online right. If you even put your toe over the line and talk in a way that Elon Musk or Donald Trump talk to great success in the US, then all of a sudden you fall into that category. Rachel from Accounts has had the most disastrous week. Her time as Chancellor of the Exchequer is nearly over. We all know it. The woman is not up to the job. But if you've been tuning into the mainstream media, who have given her kid glove coverage over the past week, you'd think she was some type of hero. As Alex Armstrong posted, I know you've taken a lot of flack for taking free Sabrina Carpenter tickets, but what's your favourite song? Is this the kind of questioning we now give the Chancellor after an emergency budget? Imagine the outrage if this question was asked to Liz Truss. And I promise you, that did happen. It was by this bloke. Now, I see him popping up at the moment, and I just keep thinking, get a haircut, mate. No idea who he is. Woke ITV has clearly decided that they need another mega lefty on the books. And this was his cringeworthy interview with Rachel from Accounts about Sabrina Carpenter. We'll get analysis from Connor Tomlinson in just one moment. But first, Connor, let's watch this together.
You're taking a bit of flack for accepting Sabrina Carpenter tickets, but what's your favourite Sabrina Carpenter song?
Well, look, I've got to tell you, Sabrina Carpenter, I mean, she's great, but I am a 46-year-old woman, so I think it probably will come no surprise that it was another family member of mine who was more of the Sabrina Carpenter fan. And look, in the job that I'm doing now, it is harder to do some of those normal everyday things. Now, don't get me wrong, this job is a privilege of my life, but I do now have security and just doing things like, you know, going to a pop concert, which I'd love to be able to do with my my kids. I just can't do that in the way that I could before. So I did take tickets to be in a box. I felt that was the right thing to do for you know, the security needs that I've got now. I know that for some people that will look weird. I totally get that, but I do want to carry on doing the things that normal parents do with their kids, and that gave me the opportunity to do that. I did enjoy the songs though. Please, please, please.
Great. Thank you very much,
Thank
Chancellor.
you.
Giggle, giggle, giggle. Connor, and I mean, Alex Armstrong makes such a fair point. You would just never, ever see that type of soft touch coverage if you were dealing with a Conservative minister, if you were dealing with a member of Reform UK, but we see it every day. And I don't know if you've noticed this, Connor, especially with the female Labour front benches. Anytime Angela Rayner, Rachel from Accounts, Jess Phillips, Shabnam Mahmood sit down for a mainstream media interview, they're treated, I would argue, more like a celebrity than a leading politician.
Yeah, to answer the question, it's either espresso or taste as a toss-up for me. But anyway, point being, look,
And she is
Rachel
lovely.
Reeves,
We love Sabrina Carpenter. We'll have a look at her.
I'm a bit of a not so closet fan, I will admit. Rachel Reeves has got absolutely no right to take in-kind contributions in terms of Taylor Swift or Sabrina Carpenter tickets or the free clothes as donated by Lord Ali before, when she is rubbishing the economy for everyone else. She, in her insufferable nasal tone, decided to say that they're not raising taxes on working people whilst also levying was it £25 billion increase on employer-side national insurance contributions, which the CPI say is going to cause 25% of firms to do redundancies. It's going to cause economic shrinkage. The OBR think that unemployment is going to go to 4.5%, and we know that OBR estimations are usually wrong and undercount by a factor of 3 to 4 if we're looking at migration. So who knows how bad it's going to be. Growth in less than 6 months has halved projections from 2% to 1%. They've done, yeah, sure, £5 billion worth of cuts a year to welfare to stop brand new BMWs being bought by people with some flaky ADHD diagnoses, but they've done double that in unexpected, unaccounted for borrowing. And instead of, I don't know, do things like cut down on the amount spent every year on illegal migrant hotels. It was 14.4 billion in 2023, and it's going to go up under Yvette Cooper to 32.7 billion, by the way. Instead of doing that, they're initiating a Marxist grave-robbing tax on family farms, sabotaging our food security for a pure land grab and sort of socialist resentment ploy, I assume. So a lot of this, the thing that really stings, isn't just the sort of patronizing delivery, the sort of wink and a nod that's being delivered with these softball questions by the establishment press, but it's that they're robbing the country blind. They are imposing the highest energy costs in the developed world on us, all while banning legislation that prevents Chinese slave labor from being used in the solar panels that Mad Ed Miliband is going to fix to the roofs of schools and hospitals, even though we get less sunshine than Russia. You know, they're destroying our energy security, they're dilapidating our economy, and they're laughing it up in expensive pop concert boxes while they do it. So that's the real insult.
There was a slightly edgier confrontation between Rachel from Accounts and Nick Ferrari on LBC, or as I now call it, the Labour Broadcasting Company, but he still used the opportunity to drop in some Carpenter lyrics. Watch.
Assuming you've had your morning espresso, I wonder if I could please ask you a question about your musical taste. If you were to be asked to get tickets for Billie Eilish later this year at the O2, would you do it again?
I'm not a huge fan of any of these pop bands, but look, I went with a member of my family.
If you were to go and see Billie Eilish, would you this time pay for the tickets yourself, Chancellor?
Well, look, a lot of change since the election. It's the privilege of my life to do this job, but I now have security that I can't just sit in a normal tickets in a pop
I
concert.
Appreciate that, and I wouldn't want that, and we don't want you in the mosh pit. That would be utterly ludicrous. My question again is, you must go with security. Would you pay for the tickets yourself to watch the show?
I will obviously think again about, taking those tickets. But I was in a position where I was advised that it should be in a box.
No, I agree. I agree. It's not safe. I absolutely agree.
Yeah, and the owners said that there were tickets that were not available for sale, but they're used for these sorts of purposes,
Chancellor,
so that's why I did that.
I've benefited from that. You simply say to the organiser, right, there are 10 people here, the boxes cost £2,500, I better give you 250 quid. So I say again, lastly, if you're asked to go to Billie Eilish, I don't want to be a bad guy here, but when the party's over, would you ask how much the tickets cost?
I've declared, the sort of the notional value of those tickets. Look, I understand how this seems to people. My circumstances are a bit different, but obviously, I will think carefully about any hospitality that I take, and whether that seemed to be any type of conflict of interest, for example, because I do understand public perceptions. I want to be a good mum and a good politician. I try and get the balance right.
But she missed the point, didn't she, Connor? Because the point that Nick Ferrari was making there is that you could take the tickets, but you could still donate the equivalent amount of money. I mean, maybe we should be happy that we've got such a tight Chancellor. If only she was so tight with our money.
Yes, yeah, it's always the Margaret Thatcher line of eventually socialists run out of spending other people's money. I will say if she does have a spare pair of free Billie Eilish tickets to hand, I would have asked her to donate them to me, but after the last album, I'm not so sure. As for her being a good politician, well, I can't speak to her skills as a mother. It might be better than Angela Rayner's, given that she raised a son that's now gone on to do OnlyFans. But as far as being a good politician, she won't probably last till the end of the year, because she's completely sabotaged the economy. We have now got one of the worst sort of GDP per capita falling rates. I mean, it's completely stagnated since 2008 financial crash. But in terms of real GDP compared to the pre-pandemic, we are the second worst in the G7. We're only above Germany because Germany has gone into the negatives because during and preceding the entire Ukraine war, where they've been giving more subsidies to Russia for their gas than they've actually been giving to Ukraine in aid, they decided to systematically dismantle their nuclear plants and then thought it would be just tickety-boo, how brilliant that was. And then, for some reason, she was handed an economy where we're the fastest growing in the G7, and in the final quarter of last year, growth shrank to 0.1%. I mean, in the 80s, it was a bit of a scandal if you got anything less than 3%. So the entire thing is running on fumes. They won't reassess their migration policy. They definitely won't reassess net zero, even though even the likes of the Conservative Party under Kemi Badenoch have realised, oh, there's a bit of a carcinogenic effect of closing all our steel plants, cementing our gas wells, and asking the Chinese to make us wind turbines that break with the slightest bit of breeze. Labour will not reassess any of their disastrous policies. They'll continue inflicting misery on us and probably keep going to bread and circus for free while they do so.
More embarrassment in the lefty media this week, Connor Tomlinson. Sly News got their Iqbals and their Mohammeds mixed up, as you do. Watch.
We wanted to clarify something discussed on last night's programme. During an interview with Jeremy Corbyn, we talked about the Independence Alliance group of MPs, and I made a reference to one of its members, Mohammed Iqbal, as having been previously suspended by the Labour Party for allegedly making anti-Semitic comments in a meeting. We wish to make clear that Mohammed Iqbal is in fact a councillor. He's not an MP, not a member of this group. Rather, Iqbal Mohammed is a member of the Independence Alliance group of MPs and did not make such comments. We want to apologise for this error and any confusion that was caused.
And Iqbal Mohammed posted on X after that, I note the on-air apology from Sky News for its false allegations against me for alleged anti-Semitism on live TV. I will never stop speaking up against genocide, war crimes and for the rights of the Palestinian people. Our UK mainstream media must do better. I mean, the irony here, Connor Tomlinson, is they could have just said the guy who believes in first cousin marriages, right?
Oh, I'm so glad that we have to have this debate, Dan. It's one of the benefits of diversity. Yeah, I too am confused of how Sky News could have gotten mixed up with such a good British name as Iqbal Mohammed. I mean, I will say, at least he got better than I got when they decided to lie about me live on air when talking to Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt. No, it was only Jeremy Hunt, I think, with Sky News, when I had a chat with Liz Truss, because they made some rather mendacious comments about, misogynistic things being brought up in the interview when it was conducted by someone completely different. And then I never even got a retraction properly. So at least he gets an apology for not having been suspended from the Labour Party. As far as anti-Semitic comments, though, I mean, I'm not Jewish. I've never been to Israel. I don't have skin in the game beyond having some Jewish friends whose well-being I would like to see assured. But I would think that supporting exclusively Palestine and Gaza, which has been under the jurisdiction of Hamas, in whose charter they reference the hadith that says that Judgment Day will come and Allah will animate the rocks and the trees to come alive to announce where Jews are hiding so you can come and kill them. I would think that counts as an anti-Semitic comment, wouldn't you? And yet again, I'm so glad that we have to have this debate because successive governments, Labour and Conservative, have insisted on importing tribal sectarianism from the Middle East and Africa to a land which was green, clean, pleasant and peaceful for at least a few decades before they all showed up. So I would rather that we didn't have sectarian Islamic politics that required clarification because we kept mixing up our Mohammeds.
One other moment for you, Connor, to have a look at. Luke Campbell, he is one of the Reform UK mayoral candidates. And he has posted on X that it's unfortunate that a local primary school removed my name from one of its houses. But my focus remains clear, delivering real results for everyone who lives in Hull and East Yorkshire. If elected mayor on May the 1st, that's exactly what I will do. He was asked about this in a interview on the British Bashing Corporation. Watch.
Luke, what's your reaction to this story?
I'm in the world of politics. Do I think it was probably unwarranted? Probably. But there's been so much positivity, you've got to take the little bits of negativity as well. But nothing's going to change. I've still got my priorities that I need to focus on. And I'm ready to stand up for my community and back the people of Hull and East Yorkshire.
So you'd say that it's their school policy. Do you accept that then?
I don't think it's for me whether to accept it or not. I just feel like I'm going to continue in this mayoral election, and I want to stand for the people and put my community first. And if you get the odd little bumps on the way, you just got to take it on the chin and keep moving forward. There's a much bigger picture ahead.
Because, of course, he was a boxer, a top boxer, Connor, and all of a sudden the school is embarrassed the moment he runs for Reform UK. I'd be very surprised, Connor, if they did that to a lefty candidate.
Yeah, I don't think that you're going to have various left-wing patrons of public institutions' names scrubbed. I mean, the best one, for example, there was a park somewhere that was going to rename itself Diane Abbott Park. Now, bear in mind, Diane Abbott sat on the BBC once and said that Chairman Mao, the dictator of communist China, who had 100 million people killed in his Cultural Revolution and the ensuing Great Famines when he declared war against nature and killed off all the sparrows, she said that Chairman Mao, on the whole, did more good than harm. So the idea that we should be using her name on anything, as if Diane Abbott has achieved anything than being unable to find out a left and a right shoe. The idea that we should be accepting these people while scrubbing the likes of Luke Campbell, who has, as far as we know, done nothing wrong other than stand for reform, which is softening its stances on everything anyway. Yeah, it's absurd. But it's never about hypocrisy. It's always about hierarchy. All they want to do is scrub the names of anyone mildly respectable from public institutions or of historical note, so they can wage their revolution against everything good about our civilization unopposed.
And the British Batting Corporation there are actually just giving Luke Campbell some very good local publicity, I would argue. Now, King Charles, worrying signs for the monarch, and Lady Colin Campbell has some disturbing news on this. Much more on that, and much more Connor Tomlinson in just 1 minute, so don't go anywhere. But first, you know I never recommend anything unless I truly believe in it, and today I've got something absolutely game-changing for you. Have you ever stopped to think about how crucial comfort is, especially down there? Well, let me tell you, today's Outspoken is proudly sponsored by Sheath Underwear, the revolutionary brand shaking up men's comfort across the globe. And here's what makes it even better. Sheath was founded by a brilliant US Army veteran, Robert Patton, while he was serving in Iraq back in 2007. So that's right, this isn't just an underwear brand. It was designed for the toughest conditions imaginable. Patton was battling relentless heat and discomfort in full combat gear, and he thought there has to be a better way. And there is, because he created it. Let's be honest, traditional underwear just doesn't cut it anymore. Sheath's innovative dual pouch design ensures your comfort all day long, keeping things separate, cool and fresh. Imagine your essentials being comfortably cradled away from unwanted friction and heat. Trust me, it is a genuinely transformative product. I have tested it at the gym, on long days at work, and I'm telling you, once you've experienced Sheath, there simply is no turning back. They're stylish, they're supported, and they deliver unmatched comfort. It's like upgrading from economy to first class, but for your underwear. So right now, I am offering you a 20% discount. It is exclusive at sheath.com. So 20% off your entire order. All you have to do is use my special promo code Outspoken at checkout. Sheath is the perfect present, by the way, if you're looking for something for your husband, your son, your brother, or hard to buy for mates. But if you are a lady and you end up on the website, you will see there are female versions available too. This is really cool as well. Sheath, did you know, was the first official underwear of the UFC. So you can go to sheath.com or just click on the link below, enter Outspoken on checkout, and then you can thank me later when you're feeling comfortable, confident, and ready to tackle anything your day throws at you. Sheath underwear, redefining comfort one pair at a time. But now, back to the show. Breaking right now, King Charles has appeared in public for the first time since an emergency hospital dash yesterday, which saw him have to cancel engagements. The palace said this was a result of complications from his ongoing cancer treatment. However, he is now going away for rest and recuperation this weekend. Of course, the goal is to get him on the state visit to Italy in just 2 weeks' time. It has been easy to forget that the king is battling very, very severe cancer and is having ongoing treatment and has done ever since the announcement. But Lady Colin Campbell has some disturbing, if important, news about his condition. We'll get analysis from Connor Tomlinson in just one moment, but first, here's what Lady C had to say.
The king is not in any position health-wise to add to any stress and burdens that he already has. I mean, his cancer is not curable, or certainly, let me rephrase that, for public consumption. It is not yet cured, and there is no great prognosis that it will ever be cured. So he is having to live with treatment, and one of the things with cancer is you are not supposed to have any excessive stress.
And longtime BBC royal correspondent Jenny Bond appeared on GB News today, suggesting, and again, this is dark, but it seems to be a reality, that Prince William is preparing to take the throne.
I really do feel for William. I mean, everyone gets worried about their dad when they're ill. You know, he's had, as he says, a brutal year with not only his father's illness, but obviously Catherine's illness as well. And well, everyone might get worried about their dad. With William, the inevitable death of his father is going to completely change William's life. It's going to upend it. So that's a whole different ball game. So I'm sure he must be more concerned for himself and for his father than perhaps everyone else. But yeah, I suppose we should be somewhat reassured that that William didn't come racing to his father's bedside.
Yeah, that is a good sign.
And Connor Tomlinson, look, I think whatever you think of the king politically, and we will go there in just a moment, one of the things that has been absolutely incredible about his reign is the fact that a large portion of it has been conducted with him battling very, very severe cancer, incurable cancer, according to Lady Colin Campbell, that he will have to receive treatment for on an ongoing basis. And really, because the guy is so stoic and is so broadly healthy, we haven't really seen too many negative effects of that, because he wants to lead a full reign. You know, he doesn't want to have to cancel engagements.
Yeah, I think Lady C was being very diplomatic and very kind there, but one does not have to read between the lines to say that a man in his mid to late 70s facing incurable, only treatable cancer, who has demonstrated signs of ill health ever since he took the throne, when his fingers looked inflamed when he was first signing official documents on camera, probably doesn't have that many years left. And I'm sure that he has a personal disappointment with that, because he waited to take the throne for many long years because his mother was a very long reigning monarch. But also I just feel immense sympathy for everyone around him. You know, I don't have much in common in terms of political worldview with the king, but that does not matter. It does not obscure my ability to say that, you know, his kids, even if they have fallen out with the long documented feud that you've spoken about, Dan, between Meghan, Harry, and then William and Kate, even if his kids have got bad blood between them, I feel sorry for them both to lose their dad, and their grandkids to lose their granddad. I mean, I'm very lucky to have still got both sets of grandparents, and obviously both parents, in my life.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah, I will be absolutely beside myself when either of my granddads, you know, succumb to the inevitable. And so, you know, the three young princes and princesses who are looking at the prospect of having to attend in a short space of time as well their great nans and then their granddad's funeral, I mean, it's going to be absolutely heartbreaking for them. So you can only pray for the king's recovery, if not for his sake, for at least for theirs.
Yes. Now, it is worth just having a look at Camilla, because she was at ITV yesterday on set, meeting some of the daytime stars like Lorraine Kelly and Christine Lampard. And I guess the suggestion is, Connor, if things had been really bad for Charles, she would have stopped chatting to Dermot O'Leary and she would have got to the hospital. So perhaps that is a positive sign in some way. Although I have to say they are pretty independent, and it's often that Charles and Camilla do things separately. I think we do have to go there in terms of the politics. Now, this is an interesting one for me, Connor, because even when I posted last night saying God save the king when I revealed the news of him going to hospital on X, I had quite a lot of people replying to me saying things like, not my king, or I've lost respect for you now, Dan. The thing is, right, Connor, is that I am a royalist, I am a monarchist, so I believe in the institution. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you believe in everything that the monarch does. But like Reform UK, I argue that I'm a critical friend. And actually, Charles, over the course of his reign as king, not as the Prince of Wales, has done all right. He's certainly done a lot better than probably I thought he would when, as the Prince of Wales, he was obviously getting involved in political decisions all the time. However, there has been quite a lot of concern about people thinking that he has put more focus on the Muslim religion than the Christian religion in recent months, given he is the Church of England. And a lot of it was sparked by this video, Connor. Let's watch it, and then I'll get your reaction off the back.
Muslims across the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth observe the beginning of the holiest of months in the Islamic calendar, the month of Ramadan. I just wanted to convey my heartfelt best wishes to you all, and to tell you just how much my wife and I are thinking of you at this special time of year. As this would have been a joyous time. Mosques would be filling with life, Muslim families would be coming together to share food and prayers, and many of them would be inviting their neighbours and friends, of all faiths and none, to join them. My wife and I can only offer you all our kindest and most special wishes, and stress just how greatly the contribution of Muslims to the life of the United Kingdom is appreciated and valued, embodying the Ramadan spirit of charity and selflessness. As the Quran says, God does not burden any soul with more than it can bear. We hope that you have a blessed and fulfilling Ramadan. Peace be upon you all.
Connor Tomlinson, do you understand the concern over that video?
Of course. I mean, the Quran would also justify stoning rape victims if a goat hadn't eaten the page, according to Islamic scholars. So the entire thing is incredibly absurd. I think most people were very worried about allowing an iftar to be hosted on Crown property. I think Windsor Castle, if I remember correctly. And so in the last year, at least, if not few years, the monarchy has joined the government, particularly the civil service, the BBC and the like, in showing more concern about the growth and sensitivities of Muslims living in Britain and around the world than the instantiated religion of Christianity that the king is meant to be the head of the Church of England. And so it's not shocking that people are getting disillusioned with the institution if it's occupied by a man who doesn't necessarily live up to it. Now, Dan, I feel much the same way as you do. I think Britain always needs a king. It's kind of ironic that the public at large is questioning whether or not it needs a king just as the third Charles rolls around. It seems that we're going up and down as to whether or not Charles should sit on the throne. But as a long-suffering Catholic who understands that the church is legitimate even if you have a bad pope, see the one sat there right now, I understand the need for tradition, I understand the need for hierarchy, and I understand the need for a kind of immanent transcendent, the spirit of England, to coalesce in a figurehead. And so when the king does inevitably pass on, we can only hope that Prince, soon to be King William, lives up to the expectations of the role and does a little better. But the final point I will make, if I may, is the political implications of this. I don't know, and it might be a strange detour. If you read Douglas Carswell's piece in the Telegraph recently, he was talking about the need for a sort of great repeal and restoration bill to remove lots of laws in Parliament that the Tony Blair and sequel governments have put in place. And he suggested that we use orders in council to get rid of all of those laws to disband the civil service, and that would require the permission of the king. And I read that and I immediately thought, well, it's highly unlikely that Charles is going to do that because he is as much a man of Davos as Keir Starmer is. So it'd be very interesting to see what happens to the political role of the monarchy, which is usually frowned upon, but we are going to be in very uncertain times in only a few years, demographically, culturally, politically. when Charles passes on and William takes over, will he be more willing to support a government that wants to get rid of lots of laws on the books that are doing Britain down, or will he be more like his mother, not willing, grandmother, not willing to intervene in politics, or will he be more like his father, a little bit more resistant on instinct to rapid political change, even if it's for the best of the country? It'll be interesting to see what happens when Charles passes on. Not that we're wishing to expedite that, but well, the fact that people are wishing to expedite it does reflect badly on Charles's ability to defend the faith rather than faiths.
Indeed. Connor, I'm just going to bring in our royal mastermind, Angela Lev. Now, Angela Lev, as you know, will be with us for the uncancelled after show on Substack, www.outspoken.live, in just a couple of moments. But Angela thought it was really important to hear from you on this breaking news over Prince Charles. Are you sorry, King Charles. I can't believe I'm still doing that sometimes. Angela, are you concerned?
Yes, I am concerned. But can I also say that I think the king is wonderful to Jewish people. I don't complain a word about it. It doesn't bother me that he's with Muslims and not being Christian, because I think he's very Christian inside. And I think that he's been very good to the chief rabbi, letting him stay with him so he doesn't have to walk or take him at some sort of car in break a Sabbath. And he's been incredibly kind to the Jews. He can go around and make you feel very warm. And I can tell you that not many people do that at all. So it's just a balance thing. And I would just say that about him.
No, good point. And you are concerned, Angela, about
Yes,
this
I'm
hospital
very
death.
concerned. When they say that it's only a tiny bump in the road and not to worry about it, it's obviously quite interesting that he's come home on the same day. But it's obvious that if you are 76, which our king is, anything can happen. And it does make you feel that he's still got it. A lot of people have forgotten that he was having
totally
time. And so you have to actually make sure that you do understand that. He's had 6 months where he's worked unbelievably hard. So he is fit, but he mustn't overdo it for himself. And I hope that the Queen, Camilla, keeps him sort of resting and understanding that he's got this. There's obviously a worry. Obviously something went wrong. They said it was the normal weekly sort of doctors looking at him, but I don't think so.
No.
I think it's obviously not that.
No, because he had to cancel engagements, and he, as you know, Angela, he
cancel
doesn't
tomorrow,
like doing
cancel
that.
today. No, he doesn't like that.
And he's off to rest now. Okay, well, look, really good to bring you in, but don't worry, much, much more of Angela Levin over on Substack, www.outspoken.live, in just a couple of minutes. Connor Tomlinson, my friend, who is, of course, the co-host of the Deprogrammed podcast on the New Culture Forum and a contributor to Courage Media. So great to have you, Connor, and we will speak very soon. Time now, though, to reveal who is the worst Briton in the world this week. Your Union Jackass nominations are taken, and then we put them head to head. We've had well over 25,000 votes already, which is incredible. The nominees: Monday's Union Jackass, Stephanie Mander, the Easter head teacher, well, the head teacher who cancelled Easter. Tuesday, Ed Miliband, the Energy Secretary. Wednesday, Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor of the Exchequer. Thursday, Shabnam Mahmood, the Justice Secretary. Quite a lot of feedback from you on this. Any Old Orion says, Dan, a school here on Merseyside has put out an announcement about Easter, almost word for word the same as that teacher. Is it not from the government? Apparently not, but I mean, it is weird, isn't it? They're singing from the same hymn sheet, just not an Easter hymn sheet. Philip Croft, 4843, says, has to be the school teacher or the headmaster for this week. But the girl from accounts is going to be around longer than that, I'm sorry to say. Sandra Price says it has to be Rachel Reeves. She has a difficult and almost impossible job in these universally hard times, but the way out is not to go after the poor and pensioners to help balance the books. The rich among us and big business can bear it all and still be very well off, and politicians themselves could have their perks removed and take a cut in salary to show the country a good example for a change. But instead, Rachel Reeves, of course, she just keeps on taking it, doesn't she? But here are the winners. In fourth position, and this doesn't usually happen, Ed Miliband with 9% of the vote. In third position with 17% of the vote, Shabnam Mahmood. The runner-up with 22% of the vote, Stephanie Manda. But the worst Briton in the world this week with a whopping 53% of your vote, it is Rachel Reeves. Now, just before we go this Friday, I'm going to do something a little bit different, a little bit special. It is Mother's Day on Sunday, and my mum Mary is just like the most important person in my world, so I had to talk about her. And my friends at My Heritage have done something really incredible. It is live memory. It is a new AI feature, and it's so special. It turns still photos into short, hyper-realistic video clips, as if you're watching the moment unfold in real time. And so look, they've done it for me, and it's just amazing. So that is me and my mum when I was very, very young. And look, they've managed to make the photo. That's me when I was just born. And you see the photo is on the left. That's my mum with her beloved dad, my granddad, my grandpa just before he died. Look at me, my mum and Celine Dion. And we just got a picture, and there we are laughing. Mum with her wonderful mum, my grandma who I adored, my mum on her wedding day alongside my two aunties. That's my mum on the right. Look, and she's actually hugging my auntie and her older sister there. I just think it's amazing. It's terrifying, isn't it, what AI can do? That's my mum, I think, when she was leaving the United Kingdom, maybe, on the beach with my grandma. And look, it's a black and white photo. Oh, this is great. This is my mum and dad on their wedding day. And of course, they don't have many videos of that. So this is just, oh, a kiss as well. This is just such an incredible, incredible thing. This isn't an ad. I just thought that it's such a special thing that My Heritage can do. And so I wanted to share these with you and surprise my mum, because she's just amazing. And I know that right now she'll probably be sobbing about this. So mum, happy Mother's Day. I love you very much. And if you want to do that yourself, you can do it by going to My Heritage, and you can find that at My Heritage Official on Instagram or at My Heritage on X. So I'm so grateful they did that for me, because it was a really wonderful, special thing. And I'm definitely going to do loads of my own photos now. Okay, so we've got Angela Levin standing by. You've already heard from her on King Charles, but boy, we have a lot more to talk about. www.outspoken.live. Prince William has just made his biggest dig at Meghan Markle yet. So we're going to kick off with that. I will see you on Monday, though, 5 p.m. UK time. I think daylight saving happens over the weekend, so I think we're going to be back to normal in terms of Eastern and Pacific time. Hit subscribe if you're watching on YouTube and Rumble. Most importantly, I promise to keep fighting for you. Have a wonderful weekend, and I hope to see you on Substack for the after show in just one moment.